Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Professor Raphael Cohen-Almagor, researcher, poet, human rights and peace activist, and he's passionate about politics, arts, and sport. And right now he's talking from Sweden. So welcome to the show, Professor Raphael.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Professor, I'll begin in the way generally I saw you beginning your speech in one of your debates, Oxford University debates. I saw you began with Gabriel and conversation between Gabriel and God. Here I will talk about human beings. So suddenly we have, a balloon pops up in the US sky. A balloon which is supposed to be a weather balloon. China can control a lot of things. It can control its own people. It can control COVID in quick time. It can control or try to look at economics, economies everywhere. It can control production, but it is not able to control one balloon. It can control even its machine on Mars. And then the balloon floats into the US sky. They can look into things even deep into the universe with their telescopes. They have great power, but they cannot look into a balloon. And finally, one fine morning, Mr. Biden says, "I want to shoot it down," and then they just shoot it down, and the balloon is inside the seas, and it has left almost like a smoke screen. We do not know what is in that. But it is almost like a conspiracy, a new conspiracy theory floating. That's the only thing that the world can know. At least from this part of the world that I am in, I fail to understand what the hell is happening. So, Professor Raphael, can you help us understand what exactly is happening? How do we understand? Is it the start of something bad for the world? Is it the start of something, the earlier, during the 50s, people used to look at the moon when the competition between between USA and the USSR was there. And people used to look, what happened? Who is going to reach there first? Today, it's almost like from moon to balloon. That's the distance that we have covered. How do you look at it? How does a person sitting in the corner of the world can know exactly what is happening? Is it bad for the humanity? Are we going towards a new sort of a conflict in the world?
There's nothing new here. There is a rivalry between China and the United States. The two powers are competing for spheres of influence, competing for global politics, competing for the markets, for the economy. There's a power struggle between them for a number of years. They try to sort things out diplomatically, sometimes more successfully, sometimes less successfully. We know that the United States economy is in debt to China for many years, and China has decided not to collapse the American economy for its own reasons. China has been trying to infiltrate American bases of knowledge, bastions of power like State Department, Pentagon, and others, through computing services, through their power of computers. For many, many years, I talked to FBI agents in the United States. They told me that each and every day they have to guard their systems against Chinese infiltrations. And that's been going on for the past 20 years. I think it was a mistake. I think that the Chinese wanted to fly these balloons just offshore of the United States, not to enter into the waters of the United States, not to enter into the space of the United States. But the winds took them into the United States. In the United States, because they are very cautious, and because they know the powers that the Chinese have, and because they know that China tries to infiltrate the bases of knowledge for many years, they don't take any chances. It's a violation of their territorial integrity. They have the freedom to take them out. There's nothing beyond that.
It is very reassuring, Professor Raphael, to understand if there is nothing at all. But tell us, what is China trying to achieve out of this? Was it deliberate? What do you think, or is it just accidental that the balloon? Because if I just did a bit of a study on exactly what is the sovereign right of a nation above the on the skies, and generally what I understood is that it is around 45,000 feet where an aeroplane generally flies. Beyond that is not clear. This was at 60,000 feet. So, is it that China was right? Is it that US could have let it go? Was it deliberate move? What was it trying to achieve? Or it was incidental, accidental? Because
I think it was accidental. I don't think that the Chinese aim to enter into the sovereignty of the United States. I know that China tries to gain knowledge about the United States all the time via their computers, via the very sophisticated machinery that they have, technology they have. They also employ balloons for this purpose. The United States has all the justifications to take out such balloons.
okay, okay, fine. Now let's look at the world in a different sense now. The doomsday clock, it's been moved to 90 seconds to midnight. The closest ever in the history of the clock itself, and we can understand in the mankind, this is a very difficult time as per the doomsday clock. How do you look at it? Is it any matter that humanity is or the world politics is driving us? Because Ukraine crisis, Russia Ukraine crisis, that has been cited as one of the big reasons. There are other reasons also in that whole document. How do you see this world today? Do you think that 90 seconds near to midnight, that the way we are standing, is that the right reflection, or are we closer to that? Should it be 45 seconds? How do you look at the state of affairs, world politics, and along with the way all sort of conflicts in different corners of the nation puts us at the brink of, not doomsday, not very far off? How do you look at it?
Well, in this context of doom the world, if you like, as you put it, I think there are two challenges. One is the short run, in the short term, and one is the more longer term. The shortest term challenge is Ukraine. The war in Ukraine is certainly a challenge. I, for one, did not expect to see a war in Europe in my lifetime. Again, I mean, I thought the lessons of World War I, World War II were sufficient to understand the risks that are involved in that. I don't think that many people, all the so-called experts of Russia in the West, expected Putin to go to that kind of extreme, challenging world order, war of aggression, infiltrating a sovereign country under all kind of false pretenses that he flies, and that the Russians, to some extent or another, believe, because the entire propaganda machine is utilized to advance certain agenda of Putin, but his aspirations to make Russia stronger than it is and larger than it is, and claiming all kind of territories that used to be Russian, and now they're under another sovereign independent country, are very, very frightening because they shake the balance of the world. It's very difficult to see a way out of this deadlock. The war is now been continuing, and I don't see the end to that, quite honestly, because he cannot lose face. He has to, if he retreats or if he comes to all kind of modus vivendi arrangement with Ukraine, it has to be while upholding his own stature, his own honor, his own dignity in face of his own people. And that's how dictatorships and totalitarian regimes work. They don't want to lose face because otherwise the entire pyramid of cards that they establish is going to collapse. So we need to look for a way out of this deadlock to ensure that there will be a solution, and this should be sooner rather than later, because every day human life are at stake. We are losing life, and Ukrainian lives are important. Of course, Russian soldiers' lives are important. It has to end. I suggested as a way out is that Zelensky will find, or President Zelensky will find a way out, and give the keys to another person. I don't think that Putin would like to negotiate with Zelensky. I think that Zelensky has put his name in history. So we have the honor of one person, one leader, who has been acting courageously. But I think that now we need to move to the future, to a solution. And the solution has to be Putin versus a new Ukrainian leader with whom Putin would be willing to negotiate. And I think this will be the key. So balancing one against the other, the sacrifice of Zelensky presidency in some sort of a way that is going to be honorable and dignified, and then start negotiating with Putin directly between the new leader of Ukraine. I think this will be a way out of this deadlock and hopefully finishing this conflict. That's what I yearn to see. As long as Zelensky is in power and Putin is in power, I can't see reduction of forces. I don't see reduction of violence. I only hear and read escalations. More tanks, more airplane fighters, more weapons of destruction. That's what I hear. So this is not good news. That's the immediate threat to world peace that we are facing now that we need to resolve. The
Right.
long-term threat that we have in this doom and gloom picture that you want us to portray here is the global climate challenge that we have. We have only one planet in which we reside. Maybe there are many planets away from us that I can't say that we are going to discover them very, very soon because they're very, very far, if they exist, but I don't know. But I'm a scientist. Until I don't have a proof, then I don't know what to believe. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. But the fact is that we have only one planet, and it is our must to keep it livable for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren. This is our responsibility. We have a responsibility for future generations. There's no doubt that we are destroying our planet, and there are global economic plans and organizations and businesses that have vested economic interest. We're talking about billions and billions of dollars that are very, very important to them, whether we're talking about energy of all kinds, whether it's oil, fuel, gas, coal. All of these are potentially destructive for the planet. I don't understand for the life of me why we don't use our brains to transfer to what we call greener or friendlier planet resources, especially for the energy. We must do it, and we must do it now, because this planet is going to be very, very different if it continues at the same pace. This planet is going to be very different in 50 years' time. And as usual, those who are prone to pay the price are going to be the weak. So the poor countries are going to suffer most as a result of that, because they would not have the capabilities to defend and protect their children themselves. So it will be the strongest, the fittest is going to survive, and many people are going to sacrifice their life. So this is something that we have to put on our agenda seriously now, as long as we can. And this is a part and parcel of our social responsibility to future generations.
Right, right. Two, three things here, Professor. Firstly, I want to paint a very good picture, if it is possible, and I'm looking towards that. I'm a very optimistic person, and I would like to look at it. But then sometimes you have to, work backwards from the doomsday clock. You want to push that moment as much backward as possible and try to see how much best we can do for the planet, for humanity, for mankind. Firstly, about the Ukraine crisis. You said it is difficult, looks difficult. One suggestion is that the leadership change in Ukraine. In politics, everybody wants to retain the power. Very few people want to relinquish power. Does it look feasible? If it is not, then who, and if it looks possible also, who is going to make that happen? Already so much of arms supply is happening to Ukraine. Even a country like Pakistan, who's dealing with its own problems, is trying to supply whatever their reasons. I'll not go into the politics of it, but the larger and larger part of the world is getting drawn into this conflict that is happening in Europe. Then what is the outcome here? Who is going to tell if everybody is part of the conflict? You are a thinker, you are a researcher, you know about conflicts, you know about resolutions, you have giving your suggestions on conflicts in the Middle East and everywhere. How do you see this? Because this needs to change, and it has to change quickly, because you do not know, things can flare up from anywhere and then it can be uncontrollable. I don't know who is controlling, because a lot of people are controlling the planet, whether it is the military complex, industrial complex. A lot of these things are happening. The whole planet is getting destroyed. There are people who are doing it. I don't know, but nobody takes responsibility. And then we are talking about the poor who will be actually negatively impacted by this. Somebody has to take the responsibility for this, and somebody has to make this right. How do you see that, Professor?
Well, for the first challenge, my preference is that Zelensky is going to be the one who is going to make the change. He's the one who needs to understand that it's, on the one hand, it's him. On the other hand, is Ukraine at large, and a global conflict that can escalate and then go out of hand. So my preference is that Zelensky will say it's about time to change gear. There should be a new leader that will go and negotiate directly with Putin. For all kind of reasons, I'm not the one to do that. There should be another stage. I mean, listen, United Kingdom has done it with Winston Churchill. He was the great hero of World War II, and the United Kingdom showed him the way out. Told him, you've done your share. Now we need a new leader for a new economy, for a new time that will come. You may come later as it happens, but now we have a new leader. So the only person that can tell Zelensky to step down is Zelensky. I don't want anybody else. Certainly not Putin. God forbid. With regard to the second challenge that we mentioned, the global climate changes that we create, that we make them happen, that we bring upon ourselves our own destruction. This has to be done internationally. So we are talking about the G7 and other countries come together and say, we have to sacrifice. We have to make concessions. We have to compromise. Yes, there are stakes. Yes, there are big economic interests. Yes, we are going to face challenges, especially of the global economies, the global organizations, the global companies that have large stakes in it, and maybe some countries, the merchants of oil, especially the Gulf countries, and Saudi Arabia and others. But we need to face them because there are more important considerations that we are facing, which is the future of our planet and our children. So these are no less important than money, at least to my opinion. And therefore, we have to find a way out. If there will be only United States that tries to do that, not that it does, but I'm just saying, if only one country of the superpowers, of those who are great powers, is going to do that, they're going to fail. It has to be coordinated effort by the global economies coming together, understand there's a new agenda, and we not need to overhaul our entire existence. We have to move gear and to change where we are because we are ruining ourselves. That's an understanding that should have come 20 years ago. We are still in delay, but we are in delay because there are people with vested interest who want to delay because of their stakes, because of money. But money for me is not more important than human life.
Right, right, Professor. Let us try and understand it for a simple way. In India, for example, we have got lots of people in villages, small places. Globally, there are a lot of people who are below poverty line, living in poverty, consuming the minimum, even going hungry. When we tell them we have to save the planet, it can be very confusing for everybody, and that whole dialogue means is meaningless. I want to understand from you for the audience is that who is responsible? Is it politicians? It is a few industries? Is it a few lobbyists? Is it people who want control? What you are a very learned man, Professor. You understand things. Even a lot of people understand, but we never pinpoint to the problem. Or is it that everybody's else or vested interests all come together? And when everything is in danger, we go to the common man and we tell, listen, we got to change things. And the common man does not know. He is only bearing the brunt of all the things, all the weapons of control that everybody wants to have. Whoever reaches the seat of power wants to stay there forever and also want to control things along with all the powers with all the vested interests. How do you look at it? Is this sort of a situation going to give us answers to the problem? Because nobody is going to giving answers to anyone, and now people are seeking answers where? On ChatGPT, the future of the world. I didn't want to do that. I thought I would better ask you. You are a human. You will be giving an answer which is humanly possible and which can be, like you gave in the case of Ukraine, whether it happens or it does not. But at least there will be something much more that can be thought of. How do you look at this?
These interests and these issues are interconnected. They are not isolated. They are not in a vacuum. They rely on each other. What we need to see is who is the engine? Where does it start? Where does it stem from? So I'll give you one example. In the mid-1980s, a major company called General Motors, auto company, they started a new line of electric vehicles. And it was, starting, and it was successful to some extent or another, in accordance more or less with the expectation of them for a new innovation that comes into the market. But that was a new line that was, of course, friendlier to the environment, understanding the damage that oil is creating. That was the logic behind this. So we want to have a more responsible modes of energy. But these things have been discussed for many years. And after a few years, General Motors decided to dump the line of this electric car. Now you ask yourself why? It was not a failure. I mean, it was something that you understand as to you have to give it some sort of a timeline. You have to give it some chance to succeed and penetrate into the market. So why did they dump it? They dumped this line of production, and there were hundreds of thousands of cars just smashed into the yards, not sold, simply because General Motors stopped to support them. Why did it happen? Because the oil merchants, the oil companies, went and lobbied the Congress and said, if you do that, we are going to divorce our support from you, dear congressmen and women. We are not going to support you in the next elections. So make sure that you are going to decide rightly, make your own decisions. Either you want to be re-elected to the Congress, to the Senate, or you're going to support General Motors in their line of production of electronic cars. And many of the politicians decided to ban this, and they exerted pressure on General Motors. And surprise, surprise, they decided to dump the entire line. So all these things are interrelated. We are talking about, I told you, we're talking about major interests here of major international companies, energy companies. Okay, I'm going to speak about the energy companies, those that in Houston, Texas, those that are in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, those major companies. We're talking about trillions of dollars And they have vested interest to see that we are going to continue driving on cars that operate by oil and not by electric measures. So they do whatever they can in order to derail, in order to stop, in order to postpone, in order to make sure that their cars with their oil are going to run on the roads, because we are talking about big money. And then they influence, exert pressure on politicians who do their share. And this is why we are still in this muddled reality in which we destroy our planet. This has to be stopped. So to answer your questions, it's not just the economy that is motivate everything. It is the engine. So the big companies are the engine, but of course they work hand in hand with politicians who seek their re-elections into points of power.
Right, right. So why do these politicians then come out and tell that, listen, we got to change the world, and the younger generation will change the world? They cannot change their own fate even for one elections. They don't have trust on the very people who have elected them.
Well, some
How
do.
can we?
Some do. You may remember there was a very senior politician. He was vice president of the United States, Al Gore, who tried to be elected as president. He has to work against major companies, major powers, because they understood that he's going to fight against them when he's going to be president, and he was not elected. So some decent politicians do understand that the planet matters and they have to work for the planet, but unfortunately, too often we find partisan interests coming into play, and they say, well, you know, the successor, 10 years, she is going to work about these important issues, not me. I want to continue holding my seat in parliament. That's the reality in which we are living. That's human interest. This human inclination. This is human frailties. These are human weaknesses that we all suffer from. But I say, you know, it has to end, because we are destroying our planet. I'm very encouraged by young people, by young generation, who may see, you know, going into schools, going to the public circuses in cities, and protesting for their own future, and said, we want to have a future here and stop destroying us. So I'm encouraged that young people understand this thing, and there can be also young people in India that go out to the street and demand their politicians to do something now before it's going to be too late. We extinguish so many species because of our irresponsible behavior and conduct on this planet. It has to end. It has to stop. So I'm hopeful that these young people are going to take action, and they are going to prevail, and they are going to convince the politician, listen, you have to do it now. You have to do it before it's too late, because we want to continue to live on this planet and not to live in some sort of a doom reality in which we have to fight for oxygen.
Right, right, Professor. And talking of the young generation, you wrote a book, 2015, Confronting the Internet's Dark Side. A lot of people use the internet. From 2015 to 23, how do you see this whole transition of internet from basics to chat GPT? The world is talking about more about that. A lot, as I said, people are seeking answers from chat GPT, not from the people who should be answering them. Why I ask this is that there is so much of content floating about Holocaust denial, anti-Semitism, a lot of political stuff, which is actually in a way muddying the minds of a lot of young people. And a lot of this debate, a lot of discussion, which should be healthy, even if it's about that, if you have a point about not the Holocaust not happening, then talk it out. But nobody talks. They just want to throw something and then just run away into anonymity. Two things here. Who is doing that? Why has it suddenly surfaced so dangerously now? Is it about elections? Is it about that these things are really somebody's beliefs in something, or is it a project for some people? that they will use the internet to toxify the minds of people. Election is over, everything is over, and then again move on to the next elections. How is it? I really am, because this was not happening that much. It was there, people who had their own ideas. Even till today, many people believe that the moon landing never happened. So that's it, fine. The earth is flat, it's okay. But why about about Holocaust denial, about anti-Semitism? Means it is, I didn't know about these things. And I really am very difficult for me to understand how the young generation is trying to understand. How do you look at it? Again, who do you think is responsible for this? What is the way out? Please help us understand, Professor.
You raise many, many issues. I'll pick two of them. I'll pick the internet and Holocaust denial, and I'll speak about that. Well, the internet is arguably the most important invention of the 20th century, certainly one of the most important ones. I cannot imagine life without the internet. I think the internet constitutes a watershed in the existence of many, many people. It started in the 1960s. It came to the awareness, to recognition of businesses, big businesses, like the motor companies, like Coca-Cola, the big companies in the 1990s. And once it happened, it entered into the cognition of the major companies, economic companies, then it became global and started to very rapidly change the world. More and more people coming in, more people use the internet for their daily life, and now we use the internet all the time. We do that today. Now you sit in New Delhi, I'm sitting in Lund, Sweden, and we talk through the internet. Unimaginable, 30 years ago. So suddenly it's a major innovation that changed our life for better and to some extent also for worse, because the internet contains the best products of humanity and unfortunately also the worst conduct of humanity. And because it's a new phenomenon, as I said, it's 30 years old. So this world exists for 140 million years, or God knows what. So you can understand that we are talking about a small baby here in historical terms. So we are learning how to live with the internet. We are the guinea pigs. We are the starters. It's going to be very different in 100 years' time. But we are the guinea pigs. We are experimenting everything. And we are learning how to deal with the challenges. We still don't know how to deal with the challenges. We are still in the education curve, in the learning curve, how to deal with the challenges. You mentioned my book, Confronting the Internet Dark Side. That's what I aim to do. Because the internet was born in the United States, the land of the free, the land of the First Amendment, that says the Congress should make no law abridging freedom of expression. And some people, Americans, believe that the Congress should make no law means the Congress should make no law. We should have protected free speech for very beautiful speech and also, unfortunately, also for very vile speech. And many Americans believe in that. They believe that the way that we can address challenges, speech challenges, is by more speech, marketplace of ideas. That's the way to deal with that. And therefore, in the United States, you can hate anybody and everybody. What I try to say in my book is that, yes, freedom of expression is extremely important value. Take away free speech, take away democracy. There's no democracy without speech, without free speech. So I'm not going to argue against this. It's absolutely important. I certainly don't want to live in a society where speech is stifled. However, I think that speech has to be balanced against no less important value, which is called, and I mentioned already in other spheres when I spoke about the global environment, responsibility. Free speech has to be balanced against social responsibility. And it is the responsibility of everyone to see that the future will be better on the internet and that challenges, meaning anti-democratic, hateful, racist challenges, child pornography, terrorism, cyberbullying, all these will be answered for, because otherwise we are undermining ourselves. We undermine democracy, we undermine our own existence. So we have to find an answer. And I think that if we are, as users of the internet, as readers of the internet, to come across this kind of vile speech, as companies who run the internet, as countries that want to have a good internet for our society and the international community at large, if all of us are going to balance free speech versus social responsibility, I think we are going to create a better world and a better internet for ourselves. That's about the internet. Now, one thing that pop up as a result of this proliferation of technology, the fact that you can sit in Delhi, I sit in Sweden, and we speak live. As a result of that, of these wonderful powers of the internet, we're proliferation of knowledge, we're proliferation of speech. And everyone can be a user of the internet, and everyone can be a driver of the internet. This couples with the fact that many people now, young people, do not read books, do not read lengthy articles. They read tweets, they read Facebook, they channel their own streams of information, and therefore they are subjected only the information that they want to read. That means they eliminate all the things that they are not interested in. So their worldview has become far more focused, far more narrow. And if you are prone to believe in all kind of conspiracy theories, of all kind of challenges to the mind, of all kind of outside of the stream, outside convention of the mainstream, and you are rebelling yourself, like many young people tend to do, then you start to believe in all kind of issues that other people, the establishment, do not believe, and they don't want us, the young people, to believe. And one of them is that the Holocaust never existed. So it's the convergence of technology with people who want to create conspiracies and people who are hateful, people who invest a lot of their time to hate other people. And I'm talking about hate speech on the internet that is of prolific phenomena. I mean, the scope is very wide, and people hate everybody and anybody on the internet, but especially they hate four groups. They hate African Americans or Black people. They hate Jews. They hate gay people, homosexuals, and they hate Muslims. These are the four targeted groups today on the internet. And with regard to the Holocaust, as we have less and less survivor to testify, and we have more scope to doctor images to explain things in sort of a conspirational way, and you combine this with hatred of Jews that control the world and bring only malice and terrible things on us, and you have to blame something and someone, and it's very easy to blame the weak. I mean, Jews comprise 60 million people in the entire planet out of 7.5, 7.8 billion people. Jews are just a fraction. So they are a very easy target in all society, with the exception of Israel. They are a small minority. So it's always easy to pick on minorities, any minority. And the majority of the world, Jews are minorities. So we can pick on them. They are weak, they cannot defend themselves, or they seems to be unable to defend themselves. And Holocaust already happened, so we set a precedent, we can do it again. The issue of Holocaust denial is to pave the way to another Holocaust. So we are talking about people who hate and invest a lot of hatred, and they try to attract young people, young minds, to believe in their nonsense. And unfortunately, with the fact that many people don't read books and don't read learned articles, we find in the United States that, between 5 and 8% of the young population never heard of the Holocaust. They never heard of it. And we find people in Europe and the United States who say that the Holocaust is being exaggerated. Now think about almost anything that you can imagine, any phenomena, and think as a rebel. Some people say, I'm now thinking like as a young rebel, some people say that a phenomena exists. Some people say the phenomena does not exist or did not exist. I am a rebel. I would think that probably the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's something that is logical to think, but not about the Holocaust. The Holocaust is historical fact. So this kind of logic that works on many, many issues that, exist, non-exist, the truth is in the middle, but regard the Holocaust is totally falsehood, because the Holocaust is as fact as World War II.
It means some people are trying to pave the way to repeat the worst of humanity again.
Yes.
Who do you think these people are? Means they must be having some mission. Is it their just this mission, or is it that they have vested interest, so they have got this as the next mission?
Anti-Semitism is a very old disease. Anti-Semitism exists for many thousands of years. It doesn't go away. And if you hate certain creed, certain belief, and you believe that this belief is wrong, then that's what we have. And unfortunately, we have these hateful people who hate Jews. Some of them not only hate Jews, we find convergence. They hate also black people. They also hate gay people. They also hate Muslim people. They are the same people, at least the same kind of people. And some of them specialized in one of them. So they specialize in black people. They specialize in homosexuals. They specialize in Jews. And oftentimes they converge. But, the common denominator is that are full of hate. We are talking about people who are in the periphery of society, who need to blame someone for their failure, and they pick up the easy victims, those that cannot protect themselves. They're not going to pick in the United States white Christians. They're not going to do that. But when you have a minority that is vulnerable, they're going to pick on the vulnerable minority.
Okay. My question on this small question is going back to again Gabriel and God, Professor, about the right time. God says about the 70, the time is not right. If I understood, I heard it on very low volume, so I don't know if I heard it correctly, but I hope I heard it correctly. So God says it is not the right time. And even though Gabriel tries, it does not work that way because it's not the right time. Do you think humanity has to pass through all these difficult situations, difficult topics that we discussed? Or is it the time for peace, the time for happiness all across the world? Or do we have to wait 100 years? And if you say, is it time for humanity? Does humanity has time?
So I just want to explain the audience the story that I depicted it from my own imagination. I'm a peace activist, as you mentioned at the start. I'm a human rights and peace activist. So I've been fighting for peace between Israel and Palestine for many, many years. And I continue to be active in the peace sphere. And now I'm at Lund University. I'm trying to write a book about resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I've been working on these issues from the 1980s. I wrote this particular piece that you mentioned that I'm going to repeat also in my book, in one of my articles. And that was when I thought that the time was ripe to move forward in the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. And I opened the article with this story. So the story says that God is sitting with his angels, Raphael, Michael, and Gabriel in the skies, and they look down on humanity. And Gabriel is a very stubborn sort of an angel who likes to pick the brain of God all the time and challenge God. So he points God to a farmer in the fields. And he tells God, this man is 70 years old and he's been plowing his field for the past 55 years. This hard work. He has 5 people to support at home. He lives in meager circumstances. Hardly there's a bread on the table. And this is reality for the past 50-something years. And he asked God, can we do something about this? Can we help this poor farmer? And God's answer, Gabriel, he is not ready yet. And the following day, they are sitting there watching the creation, watching the universe. And Gabriel, again, he doesn't give up. Stubborn angel. So he points out to the same farmer, telling him exactly the same story, and asks him, can we do something about it? And God says to him, he is not ready yet. And this weeks upon months. And then one day, when Gabriel said the same thing about the farmer, and God thinks about answering, he said, okay, today we are going to help him. But I'm telling you, he is not ready yet. So God takes gold, a piece of gold, heavy piece of gold, wrap it in some sort of a cloth, and put it on the road, knowing that when the farmer goes home, he's going to pass through that road. And then hopefully will pick the gold metal, and then he will have a better future for himself and the family. The farmer finishes his work, takes his horse and carriage, travels home. On the way, the wheel bumps into this piece of metal that is on the road covered with cloth. As a result of that, the wheel breaks. The farmer curses his bad luck, goes down from the carriage, take this cloth with a piece of metal and throw this to the side, fix the wheel, and goes home. And God and the angels look at that, and God looks at Gabriel and tells him, I told you he is not ready yet. The moral of the story is that when you have golden opportunities, you have to exploit them. You have to take advantage of them. I thought when I wrote the article that there was a window of opportunities for the Israelis and Palestinians that should not be avoided, that should not be thrown away. But for this, we have to be ripe. We have to be ready for that to happen. So peace for me, between Israel and Palestinians, is the third most important thing in life. After my family and my health, peace is the one that motivates me. And I'm using much of my energies to promote and to advocate peace between Israel and Palestinians because I'm a graduate of 4 wars and many waves of terrorism. I was at the 6-Day War in 1967. I was at the 1973 war, Yom Kippur War. I was in the 2006 war. I've been to the 1982 Lebanon wars, the 2 Lebanon wars. I'm a graduate of 4 wars. And I was a soldier in the 82 war. I've seen many wars. I think that I've been very unlucky. I think most people never saw even 1 war. Most of people that I live with, usually I'm now resident of England, most of my colleagues, my friends, my students, they never had to suffer war. War is a terrible thing, horrible, horrible thing. I don't wish it to anybody. And I don't want the Israeli kids and the Palestinian kids to continue to suffer the horrors of war all their lives for future generations. I think there's something better for them to do. And the way to do that is to create a reality in which people can live together rather than to fight one against another. So that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm trying to achieve a just solution for Israel and Palestine, that there will be an Israeli state alongside the Palestinian state, and both of them will live side by side in peace and harmony, in tranquility. It doesn't have to be the peace between Germany or France. It doesn't have to be this kind of marvelous peace. It can be also a cold peace between Israel and Egypt, something similar to that. It doesn't have to be an intertwined peace, but at least no more fighting, no more terrorism, no more violence, and economic cooperation between the 2 countries. I think that Israel and Palestine, both people are so innovative, are so creative, are so hard workers. Together, we can do marvels. Instead, we're investing also only in violence and terror. And I think this is wrong, and I think that we have to change. And the change have to come within Israel and has to come within Palestine. And if we have the right leaders in place, then I think that we can create together a better future. And when people say to me, Professor Cohen-Almagor, you're too optimistic, it's not going to happen, I remind them, I tell them, if you'll come to me in January 1977 and you tell me that later this year, President Sadat is going to deliver a speech in the Israeli Knesset, in the Israeli parliament, and a year later, they're going to meet at Camp David and sign peace accords between Israel and Egypt that is going to be sustained for dozens of years, I will tell you that you're probably a lunatic. But it did happen. If you were to come to many British people in 1993 and you will tell them that within a year there's going to be an agreement that's going to settle the Northern Ireland question, they will tell you that you are imaginary. You're out of this world. You don't know where you live. But it did happen, the Good Friday Agreement did happen. If you were to come in 1992 to South Africa and to tell them that apartheid is going to end peacefully, they will tell you that you are ridiculous. Never going to happen. They will never relinquish the power, the apartheid regime, and we are going to fight. But it did happen. All it takes is two leaders in the right circumstances who understand the challenge and are willing to pay a price, because peace is a very precious commodity. Show me one precious commodity that is not priceless. So it comes with a price. The compromise has to be deep. It has to be, quite substantial. But it can happen if you have the leaders. They can sway the people to believe in peace and start a new reality, a new language of peace, instead replacing the language of violence.
Right, right, Raphael. I was listening to you, Professor, and I just almost got lost. Peace is what, priceless, and there's a price to pay. And I hope peace prevails in all corners of the world. You have written about solutions, even to this. We started with a solution. You have written more than 300 publications are to your name on different issues. And people have your speeches. So many things are there. One more book is coming out. If I don't know if it already come about, in 2023, critical study of peace, mediation, facilitation, and negotiations between Israel and the PLO. I don't know if it's already out.
No, that's what I'm writing now at Lund University.
Right. So how do people connect with you? Where do they read more about what you have written, where we have spoken? What is the best way to do that?
I don't discriminate people, so you can follow me on Twitter. The handle is Almagor35, ALMAGOR 35. So Twitter is one way. I have a monthly blog that I've been writing about human rights, peace, democracy in Israel and the Middle East. You can, email me, and I have a mailing list of more than 1,000 people who subscribe to this, and I got those more than tens of thousands that are reading the blog over the years. The blog started, as I said, in 2000, went online in 2003, so it's now 20 years in the making, and I write regularly for the past 20 years, each and every month. You can write to me on LinkedIn. There's no limits on that. On Facebook, I'm reaching 5,000, so I think that Facebook will be closed for new members very, very soon, so that is not a possibility. I'm also appear on academia. I publish my articles on SSRN, on ResearchGate, on all academic platforms. You Google me, it's very easy to find. Raphael Cohen-Almagor.
Right, Professor. My last question to you is, you have been a soldier. You have seen things from very close. You are a great thinker. You write on politics and philosophy, ethics, law, education, sociology, history. You have also worked in India, Nirma University. So many facets of you. You study so much. You give solutions to so much. so many things. You see the world, and so many times there are things which can make one despondent. It can make one demotivate oneself. How do you look at things from so close? And how do you still keep yourself motivated and still are able to look at solutions and not get despondent? How do you do that? And what do you want to now? You always talk about solutions for others. What is it that you seek for yourself going forward?
I'm always hopeful. I'm always optimistic. I always yearn for a better future. I never care only for myself. From a very young age, I care about others. I'm a doer. I do stuff. When I see something, I do it. I don't let others doing this. I believe that I have the power to do something. I'll try to change. So I believe in myself. I believe in others. I believe in the common unity. And I also believe in the common wisdom. I always say, sometimes um, common sense hesitates, but it's bound to prevail at the end. So it needs some help. So I'm there to help this common sense prevail. I'll continue doing this. I'm very curious, and I'll continue to help others in doing that. I'm helping people on a daily basis. Almost every day there will be someone who writes to me and asks for an article, an idea, a favor, an advice. I always respond to people. That's how I see my existence on this planet, to help other people.
On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much, Professor Raphael, by joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.